Welcome to Mogobe Nuggets of Wisdom podcast. My name is Mompoloki Lerumo Mogobe. Our objective is to enthuse, inspire, energize, and empower entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs of all stripes here in BW and beyond. We do so by inviting these entrepreneurs into our makeshift studio. Sometimes we call them to the restaurant, sometimes we go to our studio, and we ask them to share their experiential knowledge, their experiences and their expertise. And we ask them as many questions as we can, aimed at empowering you also as a viewer. Hello dear viewer and listener, this is your host Mompoloki Lerumo Mogobe. As always, we bring you powerful, dynamic, impactful individuals in the entrepreneurship space, and we don't limit ourselves to Botswana. Today we have someone from Ghana by the name of Mr. Nanye Kofi. Think of Kanye as in Kanye West, and this one is Kanye. And think of Kofi Annan as in the surname. Nanye Kofi, welcome to the studio.
Thank you, sir, for having me.
All right. But before we start our conversation, can I just ask you, dear viewer, to do the honorable thing and just subscribe? It's so easy. Just strike that subscribe button. We really, really need your support, guys. Welcome to the studio.
Thank you.
Yeah. Can you give us a little bit about yourself, share your background in terms of, professional training, etc.?
Okay, so I would say, if I had to summarize myself, I am the most flexible human being. So my background is finance, fashion, and fragrances. I've somehow managed to intertwine all of my loves into everything I do. So I'm a credit trader in the emerging markets. That's the fashion side. The finance side. The fashion, I invest in fashion itself through my profits from trading. And I sort of design outfits from the contemporary African to the corporate side of things. And then last but not least, fragrances, which is probably my earliest of passions. I create perfumes. Originally from my bedroom, and hopefully we've been expanding as we go.
I think already you're making a fashion statement with your hat and your glasses. Are you?
Well, I was told I was making too many fashion statements this week, so I decided to tone it down today.
Oh, okay.
So this is me toned down.
Oh, I see. Okay. Wonderful stuff.
Thank you.
Academically,
I am a 2-time medical school dropout. I first majored in biochemistry before going on to major in economics and finance. And so, up into postgraduate level. And I have a few professional qualifications in accounting and finance.
When did it all start? Your company is called Mood Seasons.
Mood Seasons. Well, officially, Mood Seasons started at the birth of COVID.
Oh, okay.
So, COVID, I think
2019, 2020?
2020, May of 2020 is when I officially registered Mood Seasons. That was after being stuck in the Dead Sea in Jordan for almost a year.
Really?
No flights were leaving.
You had gone there for?
I had gone there to start a job as a trainee finance director for Hilton. And little would you have it, 4th of February 2020, borders closed.
Where did you go?
I stayed.
Where were you staying?
I was staying in Sweme, which is in the Dead Sea, observing camels and cows and nomads.
Oh. And then the spark for this concept came.
The desire to turn the interest into a business came. So I've been collecting perfume since I was 8. Up until I was 18, I had around 400,000 bottles of different perfumes, both discontinued, rare ones, different versions. But I think COVID gave me a period to really reflect on how I could actually turn the passion and interest I have into something. COVID made time stop. Time slowed down, and it gave you the chance to, if you took the chance, it gave you a chance to really.
Were you sitting in a hotel all this time?
No, I was actually in an Airbnb, and so the owner of the Airbnb had also been stuck somewhere else, and it was either you leave the apartment empty, or someone who's already there who's also stuck could look after it, and that's the fortunate situation I found myself in.
So you didn't have to pay all that much?
No, I didn't have to pay anything.
Now, which comes first? Fashion, how do you say it? Fragrance, fashion, and finance. Which comes first?
You know, I always interchange the order because they all come at the same time. I never isolate any of them. I think those 3 F's make me the holistic person I am. And so most people refer to me as Mr. Mood Seasons, not necessarily just because of the perfumes, but because of the mood I actually give up. When someone sees me, they're like, well, this guy's actually doing something. And then they can't quite figure it out. And then I hit them with, I do finance, fashion, and fragrances. And they're all equally loved.
That's wonderful. And I like the tagline, to mention all 3 of them.
Absolutely.
But let's see if we can break it down in terms of which one came first and why.
Okay. I would say finance came first because it just tied into what I studied. I had this passion to understand how interconnected the global markets were and how people were, and I wanted to find a way of making money from that knowledge. So I found myself after finishing university, I started working at a brokerage firm in Ghana, funny enough. And that introduced me to different types of securities or products that investment firms were using, pension funds, banks. And so that was the first time, when you're not confident in the working space, you opt for working for someone. And finance was that job that allowed me to, I was excited to get out of bed.
Yeah.
And that's where it started.
Okay. Now, this is all in Ghana, right?
So initially I studied in the UK. So I completed Durham University. So Durham, yeah. So when I finished, I worked in product control. So we were the people behind the scenes settling trades. So it wasn't the fun part, but you saw the results of what the money makers were doing. So you're seeing, a trade of $300 million, $50 million. You're just like
one guy,
and you're like, I want to be that guy. But I was the one making sure the balances were done after the excitement had been done already. Yeah. So at that point, I wanted to be on the other side of the table. But in London, it's very difficult it's what we call front office. So it's very difficult to move from the back to the front once you started at the back. So I had to take a very big pay cut and move to Ghana to join a firm that would be willing to give me the opportunity to start at the front, but on a very, very low salary. So, but I humbled myself and,
You're sacrificing for the future.
Absolutely. And I think it was easier to sacrifice because you saw what they were doing. It's different from when someone tells you you could do this and, but you actually saw the numbers. You're like, no, I want that. And I want to learn and make sure I can get to that stage. And that's
for instance, somebody to make a trade of 300 million would have done what?
They could have done something like a repurchase agreement trade, which is essentially you have bonds. So I trade bonds. So you hold a certain quantity of bonds which are worth something, and you can use them as collateral to have cash. So someone needs those bonds, you need the cash, you swap. And so over a period of time, it could be 1 day to 2 weeks to 1 month, and just a slight movement of the price of those bonds is where the money comes from.
Because is it called like arbitrage?
It is. There is a sense of arbitrage in there as well. It's like if let's say you're in need of cash and you have a car, and you go to a company and says, you know what, I want to sell you my car, but I want to buy it back in 1 month's time. You're expecting a loan from somewhere, expecting some money from somewhere, but you're a bit tight and you need the cash now. Yeah, that's essentially what it is, but in financial terms.
Okay, so when you went back to Accra, what did you work as, and what did the job entail?
So when I went to Accra, I worked as a junior broker, and essentially junior brokers, you combine 2 factions: sales, so trying to develop a client base, and then also execution of trades. So a client may come and say, I want to buy this bond, and you have to go into the market and find someone that's willing to sell at that price. And so if you can find a price at which someone's willing to sell slightly lower than where someone's prepared to buy, that difference between the price is what we call the margin, and that could translate to from anywhere between $50 to $50,000 depending on what it is.
Yeah. So you did that for how long?
So I did that for 1.5 years. And then, funny enough, I got approached by Hilton, who were interested in my accounting side of things. The side I was running away from. And I must admit, when I first started as a junior broker, it was very difficult. I had never been in that situation before. I was excited to want to make money, but of course, when you start, you realize how difficult it is to actually get to that point. You have these relationships, but some of them don't even want to talk to you.
Why?
They don't know who you are. They've been dealing with, let's say, the same person for 10, 15 years, and you've come out of nowhere. Who are you? Right? So it got a bit frustrating, and Hilton came and offered maybe a more of a comfortable job. This was the first time a company was willing to pay an expat salary, to be a glamorized accountant. And so they would send me to different countries. So
You're a chartered accountant, right?
Yes, management chartered accountant.
Yes,
SEMA.
So what did you do for Hilton?
So I was basically on a trainee program to be a director of finance. So at the time, Hilton were trying to expand into Ghana, and they had not built the hotel yet. So they wanted to train internally so they can place me there. So they would send me to different countries with hotels that were maybe underperforming, and so I would be placed there to learn under the finance director and understand what things were. And the first country was Jordan. Yes, and so that's how I ended up in Jordan in the first place. So as a finance director, essentially what I was doing with Hilton, you were sort of reconciling, receipts from the different restaurant outlets in the hotel, the people, what people have paid for their bedding, for their nights. You collate those together. You could do anything from trying to discuss potential revenue points from having to move one restaurant from, let's say, the ground floor to the second floor because you feel that there's more traffic that way. It's very strategic, when you're looking at that too. All sorts. And also you're dealing with
budgeting as well.
In budgeting, of course. With hotels, budgeting is quite static, so it's sort of an annual budget that just rolls over. Right. But and then I think another interesting thing was to also delegating with the shareholders themselves. So as a hotel, you're actually a property management company. The hotels don't own their buildings. It's an investor that has invested, and you've put a tag on there. And so you're having to sort of look at the returns because they put so much money in expecting a potential return.
Am I right in saying that you're a bit nomadic? I mean, you moved from the UK back to Ghana and then to Jordan. Now here you are in Botswana. Are you a nomadic type of guy?
I am a carefree person, and I think it's come from how I grew up. So I grew up on my own since I was 12. I lost both my parents. My mum when I was 5.
I'm sorry.
That's right. My dad when I was 12. So I've been used to sort of moving around a lot, and I find some solace in that fact that this world is so huge. 7 billion people plus
it's 8
counting.
now.
It's 8 now. Oh, wow. See, 8 billion.
They announced people. About 2 months ago.
2 months ago.
8.
Look at that. And how many countries are there in this world?
Close to 200 or
Close
more.
to 200. Okay. The average person will see 2 in their lifetime. And that's scary when you think about it. So for me to be able to experience different cultures and different people, I'm always for it.
We talked a bit about finance. Let's move over to fashion.
Yes. Simply put, I like to look good. So I started to think, well, my personality, I have different moods and different feelings and different loves for different occasions, and I felt that the best way to be able to reflect that is to be able to create my own. So the fashion was just a natural fit. I've always liked to look good, so being able to own something where you can create a vision where you're visualizing how you want to look or what you think is good, and to have people buy is more of a confirmation of they agree. and so fashion was just a very simple fit.
Well, it doesn't escape attention that one of the world's wealthiest men is into fashion, the owner of Louis Vuitton.
Yes, Bernard Arnault.
Yeah, Bernard
Arnault.
Yeah.
Who is also into perfumes, fragrances.
Okay.
And I think fragrances and fashion are very, very... They move hand in hand. It's very different it's very difficult to isolate them. That's why you'll notice that a lot of the big brands usually were fashion first before the fragrances. And the fragrances are sort of like an extension of how you look, and now you add how you smell.
So do you design your own clothes then?
Yes, I do.
Where does the skill come from? How do you go about that?
I learn. I learn and I delegate. So I've learned in this life that you can't do everything yourself. So, and there are very, very talented people in West Africa. That, you know, I say West Africa because that's where I've mostly been based.
Yeah.
Who have never had the opportunity to be able to really see their work valued. So when I came to Ghana, I was just blown away by, you know, even the raw talent, and some of them just needed guidance or needed the formal training. So I found a few talented people and I funded their training. And so my creative fashion comes from what I am visualizing, but they were able to get the training to be able to put my vision onto paper. And then once you're able to sketch it, it can be made. And so my fashion comes from more amalgamating.
So does it not take a lot of specialized skill?
It depends on what you're doing. I think there are some simplified skills that just need a lot of times we know how to do certain things, but we've never really been trained how to do them. So it's one thing making a shirt for one person, but what if now a shop comes and says, hey, we want to stock 150 pieces of this item. You have to make sure every single of those items are identical. They have to be the same. Can you repeat it again and again? And that's where raw talent sometimes dwindles.
We're targeting the mass market.
Yes. Even well, if you're trying to grow a business, at least you'd have to sell to more than one person.
Yes.
Right? Right?
Yeah,
so
you need the numbers, yes.
Exactly. And I think one of the challenges of the creative side of things is being able to repetitively keep the same standard of value of the item that you're selling. And I think that's where the lack of training comes in.
So you come out of COVID lockdown in Jordan.
Yes.
And when does all this happen?
All at once. So Ghana was locked down at the same time.
Yes.
So Ghana was locked down a bit further up until September. So when I left Jordan, I actually had to go and stay in the UK because that was the only airport that was open, and I ended up moving there. And again, internet. You know, while I was on lockdown, I was watching this show called Dragon's Den, which is an entrepreneurship, I would say a pitch show in the UK.
I'm familiar with it.
Right. I watched every single episode.
It's like Shark Tank.
Exactly.
And there's also Lion's Den, right?
Exactly that. And I watched every single episode at least 10 times on YouTube. Like, you know, and one thing
it's almost like a free entrepreneurship class. Watching
it
those
really
things.
is.
I've watched them. I've watched loads of them.
It's crazy. And one thing I learned from those shows was having the idea was not enough. You know, there were certain questions that they would ask you.
The cost of customer acquisition.
Right.
The profit. When do you intend to make profit? And what else? They would ask you about traction, proof of concept.
Yes. And so a lot of these entrepreneurs come in with, I'm doing okay. And a lot of them are doing okay, right? But even with the most, something that just looks perfect, how they just were able to just strip it down and break it. And it made me also... In minutes. And it made me start to also try to reassess where I am, you know, and it was I think for me it was my best teacher, you know, and I think for that it just motivated me to just push and just start. Yeah.
Let's talk about the fragrance then.
Okay.
Is it a particular fragrance or it's a whole set of them?
A whole set. I create. So I started off with perfume oils, simply because I found out as I started that it was going to be very difficult to ship alcohol-containing products around the world. So I had to now reevaluate my business plan. So I create scents from all over. Most of them, the ingredients are locally sourced in Africa. So initially, the plan was to make different variations of ouds. Then the responses came to what the samples I was giving out to people, and that sort of motivated me to look at other elements. So I have everything from fresh scents to your sweet, your sensual scents to your woody, everything.
What does it take to create a fragrance?
A nose and the ability to repeat. Honestly, it's
You
trial
make
and
it sound simple.
It is.
Don't you need a chemist?
Not anymore. I think, look, initially when I started, I had to literally create the extracts for myself. But now, technology has already have extracted it already. You don't have to now squash the pineapples and go through a distillation stage anymore. They've done that now. It's in an absolute extract. So now your challenge is to mix them to a point where the smell is your target. And to be honest, I have started off mixing something and said, hey, my target is this. I've made a mistake, but it smells nice, and I have to remember the mistake.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
So it's a beautiful accident.
It really is a beautiful accident.
Yeah.
But it does come with, and so for me, I don't think you need a chemistry background anymore. It's more about trial and error and being able to repeat.
Don't you require some form of regulation, some registration, which would then in turn, ask, when they ask for you to prove that you had a specialist to do all this?
No, not anymore. I think it's a bit of a grey area with perfumes because you're not actually required to specify what every ingredient that's in the perfume. So what perfumers do is we summarize them in something what we call notes. So you may see a top note, and it's just basically differentiating between the rates of diffusion of the different ingredients. So what it is that we would usually put the notes that you can smell and say this is what's in there, but there's so much more in there. Yeah.
That sounds interesting. How did you become part of Forbes Under 30? In other words, what brought you to Botswana?
Well, funny enough, and this is a funny story, I listen to music a lot. And so my most common music channel is Spotify, and I had gone on holiday to Dubai, and for some reason I had lost my premium subscription to Spotify. So that means I'm now listening to adverts. And I'm just sitting there and I hear an advert of Forbes 30 Under 30 in Botswana, and they're offering those who are resident in Africa a discount to come and attend. And I thought to myself, I don't see any other point of time where I would have come to Botswana. Not because Botswana is not a place where people come to, but it's like I said. There's 200 countries plus in the world. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of countries you're not going to go to, and this provided a very good opportunity to see something different, and it just made sense.
When was this when you heard this advert?
I heard this advert a month ago.
Oh, and you immediately applied?
Immediately.
And you immediately accepted?
Immediately.
You must have put a powerful proposal.
Well,
yeah.
Yes.
What did you say in your proposal, if you could summarize?
I told them who I am, what I do, and what the dream is, and how far along that dream has come to, and what contribution coming to Forbes would add to the dream. Okay. Essentially.
Now, you've been here now. Is this the last day today?
I'm here until Sunday.
Oh, yeah. I mean, in terms of Forbes, the activities.
Forbes, yes, it's the last day today.
So, what have you benefited? Has it met your expectations?
Absolutely. It's exceeded. I mean, I think these kind of events, you make it. Your experience from the events depends on how you act on it.
How you apply yourself.
How you apply yourself.
Like you took advantage of my offer to be on the Nuggets.
Exactly.
On the spot. You're one of the first to take it.
Exactly. On the spot. And, and the thing is, in order for you to do what you need to do to benefit the best, you need to also understand the benefits of what these things are. You're coming to Forbes 30 Under 30 where people from all over the world have the same or even stronger version of the mindset that you have. They're doing all sorts of different things, but they're going through the same challenges. They're speaking to the same sort of people, some of the people that you are trying to access, that they are accessing for fun. And they have different visions and thought processes of how things work, which may not agree with yours, but they're still beneficial to hear, because you might be there might be something that you might be missing because you've been focused on one sort of rhetoric, but maybe the difference is what they knew. And so just being here to network and have conversations with people and see them, see these entrepreneurs under a more casual light. You're not in the business conference anymore.
Yeah.
The same person that came to give a speech, I believe was the youngest billionaire in Africa.
The one from Tanzania.
Tanzania is the same person you're sitting next to, and he's telling you on the real, what really is going on, you know?
Yeah.
You know, there's a certain quality in that.
Speaking of that, who impressed you the most? Any particular presentations that left an impact?
There were a few.
Were you part of a panel yourself?
I wasn't. No.
Okay.
No, I wasn't. There were a few. I think what stood out to me, you know when someone says that someone's the youngest billionaire, you just hear the number. But hearing him speaking exactly what he's doing to achieve that, and some of the things are very, honestly, they're not far-fetched things. They're very basic things,
just
but
that they're done systematically.
He has done it systematically, and that's just amazing to see. You know, sometimes I get overwhelmed when I hear when someone says they're into tech, right? I'm just like, I don't understand anything about tech. But then you hear when they break it down as to what they're actually doing, you're like, actually, wow, I can actually utilize that in
the triple Fs.
Exactly, in the triple Fs.
Yeah.
So it's been an amazing experience.
Yeah. Which of the three businesses would you say three aspects of the business you say are ahead, or are they moving in sync at the same level?
Oh no, I would say well, it depends how you look at it. Are you looking at revenue?
Yeah, we could start with revenue.
Okay, with revenue, I would say finance is probably at the forefront, which essentially has been funding a lot of the other sides of things, and that's only because you're already in finance as a trader. I'm already geared to speak to very big banks like JP Morgan, BlackRock, and pension funds, and so that naturally and a minimal ticket size for a trade is maybe $200,000. So US, right? So I would say by default, of course, the finance would have the upper hand, because also it's not an entrepreneur. It's not I'm not self-employed in that respect. A close second would be. What
do you mean you're not self-employed?
Well, in the finance side of things, I'm still utilizing an entity that's that essentially pays me for each trade. So
how do you mean?
Like a commission. So let's say I do a trade and there's a spread between the company takes 50% and I take 50%. And the reason why I say it's maybe not a self-employed is because I didn't build that from scratch. It's the infrastructure was already there. The only unique aspect perhaps is me and convincing clients to trade through me. These are clients that will trade anyway, but I'm offering them something of value. I'm doing some analysis. I'm giving them guidance on where the globe is and where it's heading, things that are relevant to them. And I think that's perhaps where the person.
So typically, what sort of deals or executions do you do? I mean, I don't know how to ask the question, but I'm trying to say.
So I'm what you would call a sales trader. So I let's say you have. Let's say a pension fund like Old Mutual, and Old Mutual maybe has a mutual fund that's offering their investors an annual return of 10% on the dollar, and they have, let's say, $500 million assets under management, and these assets are all placed in different bonds across different sectors or countries or you name it, with different risk profiles, etc. So they will come to me and say, okay, we have this portfolio, we're targeting a particular yield over a certain period of time. Over
the next 15%.
Yes, I want a yield of 15% on a bond that matures in, let's say, the year 2026. So I would now go out and find them a seller that is prepared to sell the bond at their yield. They may come and say, hey, we can't give you 15%, but I can sell this bond at 14.2. I'll go back to the buyer, hey, you know what? I can't get 15%. He's showing me 14.2. I can maybe push it to 14.5. If you can agree there, they'll come back and say, okay, you know what, I'll do that. I'll be like, hey, and I'll go back to the seller. Hello, so realistically, they can probably pick it at 14.5. But I'm working hard here. Can you maybe give it to me at 14.4? Or, you know what I mean? And then
you can negotiate.
Exactly. And I think, and that's the bond market, because it's what we call over the counter. So it's not on an exchange. It's declared once the trade has been done.
Oh, okay.
So we call it OTC, over the counter. So that would be a typical.
Let me ask you this: is crypto and forex featuring in any of this?
No. Forex, I would say, is more for the retail investor. So we have institutional, we have retail. So retail is what you see you see some trading platforms that do stocks, crypto, and Forex. That's for the individual. So they would do ticket sizes of trade sizes of maybe anything from $200 to maybe $5,000. When I say institutional, I'm dealing with clients that are doing 2 million, 3 million, who essentially
3 million per trade.
Yes, per trade in the size of the trade. So and for them, the regulations protect retail investors a lot more than institutional, because it's assumed that institutional investors understand what they're doing.
Do you have a Wall Street, a sort of mini Wall Street out there in Accra?
Every country has a financial center, right?
Tell me about it.
Yeah, even Botswana.
I know. I mean, tell me about your exchange.
Our exchange. So we have a stock market. We have I think by far our largest markets would be the FX and the fixed income markets, which is the bonds. So they're quite large. Ghana's going through a tough time at the moment in terms of their credit worthiness, but IMF conversations, etc. But it's amazing. I think one thing that stood out to me, actually, if I can say so, when it comes to that industry, was I went from London, where I could count the number of black traders, right, to Ghana, where everyone in the industry was black. And that was very, very different for me. And it was actually it was heartwarming, to be honest, because it felt like, okay, now your boss is black, the boss's boss is black, your colleagues are black, which in itself makes it a very exciting venture.
We have the AFCTA, which is headquartered in
Ghana,
in Accra, and as an entrepreneur, is there any special benefit for you to have it headquartered there, and what exactly are they up to?
Admittedly, I personally haven't experienced much when it comes to Africa. I think my first encounter with that was in South Africa, in Durban, where they had a lot of exhibitions, and you had a lot of I guess investors that were looking to and suppliers that were looking to connect with each other. I think one of the most important things about the Africa is a lot, as they say, Africa is very mineral rich. But it's I call Africa primary rich. So most of the starting
mineral rich and human resources rich.
Right.
Yeah.
And essentially those are primary ingredients to anything, to building. So I call Africa primary rich. Right. And I think the unfortunate thing over the last 100 plus years is that our primary richness has been outsourced. Right. We don't share our primary richness. And I think that's what this trade agreement for me means more to. I think that it creates the infrastructure to allow, let's say, an entrepreneur in Ghana to benefit from a primary resource from Tanzania or Botswana, right? And then the next stage is to have the infrastructure to develop those primary resources into things of value.
Yes.
So the rest of the world, developed countries, have the things of value. And unfortunately,
that's because isn't it because the value chain has moved to them? They take raw material and everything is now done there. The refining and stuff.
I think it's a two-edged sword because, for example, we take coconuts. Okay, so what would you say is the most common fruit here in Botswana?
Apple, for argument's sake.
Apple. Okay. For me, the most common tree you will find in Accra alone is a coconut tree. Okay, so we export millions of coconuts, right? But the most valuable thing in a coconut is coconut oil, right?
Yes.
Okay, we actually produce coconut oil on a very, very small scale using very, very, very primary entry level methods, essentially sitting there and cracking. Right? Okay. Now, 1 metric ton of coconut oil last year peaked at $4,500.
That's a lot.
Yes. So the difference is, and to be honest, the amount of investment that Africa has put into real estate, tech, or futuristic avenues, a fraction of that investment into enhancing production of coconut oil would change everything. So I don't think it's that we've I think it's a double-edged sword here. We have to also deliberately.
But I heard your president is taking action. I can't remember whether it was regard to chocolate or something that he was even preventing from being exported.
Yeah.
What was it? What's the story there?
So Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire are the largest producers of cocoa in the world. I think Cote d'Ivoire is probably the largest, and we are the second largest. I think, but the structures of how the cocoa industry works in these two countries are very different. So Ghana is centralized, and Cote d'Ivoire is privatized. So it means that the access to expanding each of those markets is very different. The accessibility to expand Cote d'Ivoire is effortless. But of course, when it comes to politics, when you come in and it's centralized, you're having to go through a lot of red tapes.
Yes.
So when you look at the global climate now, people are a lot more, I would say, rigid with what they use their money for. So if you had to choose between two countries, where one has free accessibility to be able to develop and earn revenue in exchange for tax, versus a country where you have to pay certain amounts of revenue upfront before you develop, it's going to be a problem.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that he's trying to tackle.
And is he winning?
It's going to be a long. It's going to be a long process. Yeah.
But it started.
But he started.
Yeah. Right. Challenges and setbacks. You can never be an entrepreneur without experiencing those. Let's share some of them.
I would start from the very beginning. You get very excited. You make a product, and someone somewhere who doesn't know who you are takes the risk and decides to buy from you. And then you find out that shipping is going to take 3 weeks. You have done all the work to secure the sale, and now you're struggling to even deliver to your client. Your packaging of getting to the client is not of standard. You lose that person forever. I have had a lot of those when I first started. In fact, my perfume oil bottles are in bamboo. And the story behind that is the company that actually produces the bottle, I had to find the supplier of the bamboo, connect them for them to do the bottle in my shape, and they were not convinced it was actually going to sell. So I had to pay for a mold for me to take the risk of if they produce certain quantity, I have to buy all of it. So the bottle had leakage problems, and I'm sending this bottle from Ghana to Australia to New York. Some bottles got to the customer empty. Yeah. I mean, the only saving grace for some of them was that it smelled nice. They're like, okay, this smells nice, but there's nothing in the bottle.
Yeah.
That's just one. The other thing as well is...
What you do to get out of that mess?
I had to complain to the supplier. I had to say to them, listen, and some of the solutions, I had to get them to design a stopper that seals around the original stopper from the bottle itself. And you learn, as an entrepreneur, you learn as you go. And a big teacher for me is the feedback of my customers. I think my strength has always been reviews. I love reviews from my customers. I love that. I don't shy away from that at all, because it helps me develop something because they're going to buy it at the end of the day. So I had another problem. The bamboos were opaque. You couldn't see what was in it. So I had to now create a strip of a line for people to see. The application...
How will you see? Will you put glass there?
Sorry? Yes?
That strip of a line will be made of glass.
Yes. So the bottle is a bamboo coating around an amber glass.
I wish you had brought us some.
Yeah, I know. And I came to Botswana with 40 boxes.
Yeah.
And I ended up sending them all at the event.
They're all sold out?
They're all sold out.
Wow.
Yeah.
It shows the power of the product.
I was blown away. And in fact, I'm going back very motivated, actually. And I'm coming back with more boxes to Botswana, for sure.
Great stuff.
So another big challenge maybe from the other side is when you're trying to secure investment. I've given up.
Yeah, but you're still explaining.
Yeah, sorry.
With the opaque glass.
Yes.
You opened it. Where is the setback? Where's the challenge there?
Well, if you're opaque, is the challenge in creating that?
Yeah.
Well, think of it this way.
Because remember, we're talking about challenges and setbacks.
Yes. So from a consumer's point of view, you're receiving a product as a result of all of the interchange of fixing problems before. So when I first cut the got them to cut the glass because it's something they have never done. So a lot of the times you're having to describe to your manufacturers or suppliers something that they've not done before. It's even worse when there's a language barrier, right?
Your market is what?
My supply chain would be Asia.
Asia, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
3 different countries in Asia who speak 3 different languages, right?
Namely?
So you have China, you have Malaysia, and you have India.
Proof. Yeah.
Right? So in fact, I've actually never typed in English to my Chinese, Malaysian suppliers. Because I learned the first time that sometimes they can take certain words out and not misinterpret. And the misinterpretation on 3,000 bottles.
So how do you communicate with them then?
So I had to start drawing. I had to start drawing on the paper, on a sheet of paper. Arrows here. Do this here, do that here. I had to now buy samples. Before, when you're looking at the time in which it's going to take for something to come, you're like, let me just get everything now. But now I had to now take my time, buy samples. I now have to sort of identify my stock to see at this point I need to start ordering another set. So there's been a lot. Yeah.
But none of these setbacks have floored you completely to the point where you considered giving up.
Oh, the first one did, the leakage. The leakage got to a point where I had people that were doing video reviews, and the key sentence always stood out. They smell great, but beware, they leak on shipping. So that completely alienates 90% of my market because they're thinking, oh well, if it's going to leak.
But I'm sure the next consignment was 100%.
Yes, the next consignment it's never 100% in this business, is there? But it was a lot better than the previous.
I was half in there.
Oh, full. The first time it leaked. Yeah. Thank goodness it didn't leak.
The leak.
The leak was all full up.
Yeah. Now, if there's a Botswana business person thinking about starting a business in Accra, Ghana, or in Ghana in general, what would be the attractions? What would be the positives and even the negatives there?
Okay. I think the positive is the fact that they're from Botswana. So that means they're coming with a different eye. I've come to Botswana and have seen things that actually could be very lucrative back in Ghana, and I'm very sure that if a Botswanan,
Botswana,
Botswana,
plural, one Botswana.
Okay,
but you can just say people Botswana, people from Botswana.
People from Botswana. If someone from Botswana came to Ghana, they would think the same way. West Africa and the southern parts of Africa are very different. Of course, we have some similarities, but essentially we're very different. But that's a good thing. And I think if someone from Botswana went to Ghana, and so that would be the positive. I think maybe a challenge. It's, as they say, when it comes to accessing the market, they say it's about who you know. So it can be quite difficult usually for, at least initially. Yes. But I think Ghanaians are, for me, some of the most friendliest people you'd ever find, and help in terms of helpful as well. They're very eager to help people, and I think someone from Botswana, if we're right at home trying to navigate that space. In terms of business, it can be quite expensive setting up business in Ghana, not necessarily because of the operational outlets itself, but more. I mean, my biggest cost in Ghana, for example, is shipping. It's duty. So that could take away from potential margins when you're selling. You're having to. But
wasn't AFCTA supposed to address all those things?
Okay, so there's policy, and then there's people. So you can have a policy where you're addressing certain things, but on the ground, when you're in a country, or in any country, when you're in a country where some people would say that the economic space is not that great, people tend to find ways of sort of benefiting themselves, and a big casualty of that has usually been found in the ports.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how big is Mood Seasons now? How many people employed, and what sort of revenue levels are we talking about?
The number of people employed would surprise you. So Mood Seasons has the fashion side of things, which I would say has the more employees. I would say it has about 15 people. Mood Seasons has 3 people.
You mean which one? Fragrance?
Yes, the fragrance side of things has 3 people. I guess
The finance has...
yes, our average monthly turnover would be around about $10,000 to $15,000
US.
a month.
Yeah.
It can vary, but yes, usually around that on average.
Okay.
With maybe take home being around about 8.
What's the target? What's the aim to get to what sort of levels?
So I have targets for different phases of where I am in the business. I would say at this particular phase, I would say the target aim should be around about 20 to 25. And then I think at that point, when you start to produce more with more employees, I would say I would be trying to aim for modestly probably around about 150,000 a year. Yeah.
I look at you and I say this guy must be a multi-millionaire. So
No, I'm not.
Well, it depends which currency. And I want to ask you that: how does it feel? How does success feel? How does it? How, just to some of the young viewers watching this and wondering whether it is worthwhile embarking on this difficult journey. What is the outcome? What are the results?
Well, it's always relative to where you're coming from. I came from a low point, and I would say even the mere idea that about 90% of the people you're selling your product to don't even know who you are. So they have trusted that whatever you're doing is something that's worthwhile for them to spend their money on. I get excited every time I make a sale, even to this day. When I get an alert on my website, there'll be an alert there. I still get excited to see what it is, even if I'm not the one sorting out the order anymore.
Yeah,
I still get excited the same way I got excited on my first sale on the 14th of May 2020. So for me, it's different. I think success comes with, let's say, financial success comes with a few difficulties as well. Imagine you have a bank account, and for the last 20 years, they're used to seeing average balances of, let's say, $500 in your account. And you've had a successful month one day, and now there's an amount of money of 15,000 coming to your account.
Yeah.
The banks, I've had my banks lock it up for months.
Thinking that it's
exactly right.
It's what, money laundering or something?
Yes, absolutely. And so there are certain.
Why? But you would have complied with what do they call KYC, know your customer requirements.
Yes, but you see, the KYC of me 10 years ago is not the KYC of me today, right? So it does come with a few operational glitches if you have not, because the thing is, a lot of people, I was not structurally prepared for success, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Right. When I started, I didn't envision I was going to even make $1,000. So,
was that because you're not ambitious enough, or because of the background?
Well, I had no reference point. How do I know how much I'm going to make? I can only know how much I would like to. But you have dreams, but naturally, you're not really expecting them to, and especially at the pace as well. I've only been doing this officially for 3 years.
Yeah.
Right? You're not expecting it to happen quickly.
But it has.
And it's a great feeling. Look, I won't sit here and say, it's just another day. It's an amazing feeling. And it also reinforces that you're doing something right. And it's a re-motivator. Yeah.
Let's talk about access to funding. Most entrepreneurs cite that as one of their biggest challenges. Was that the case for you, and how did you overcome it?
It's a big challenge, especially depending on which industry you're in. Naturally, investors nowadays tend to flock towards the tech entrepreneurs. They would class me as a cosmetics when it comes to fragrances and fashion. We don't get much love. Let's put it that way. We don't get much love. You can sit there and you will hear an investor talk about, we're looking for new things in the African market space, and they will say, oh, but really what they're saying is they're looking for something in tech and agriculture.
But they want something scalable as well.
And I think, honestly, cosmetics is the fragrance and fashion industry are probably one of the most scalable industries ever. We just said the richest man in the world deals in those two specifically.
One of the richest. They keep fluctuating these days. I don't know who is.
But, for someone to be consistently up there and delivering...
He's always in the top 3 or 5, somewhere there.
Right. He's not doing tech.
Yeah.
So, and let me give you an example. Look, one of my role models, or in terms of companies that I was looking at, has always been Dior, right?
Christian
Dior. The simplicity of it. They have very eccentric scents, but their image is simple. And I always argue with investors about, when you're looking for certain returns, you just take Creed for an example. Creed Aventus, it's a bottle, sells for $400 retail.
Is that's also part of Dior?
No, but it's a competitor. It's a competitor, right? But I'm just looking at the fragrance industry for
right. You'll excuse my ignorance.
No
in that field.
So Creed Aventus is a very popular perfume, men's fragrance. It sells for $400, right? It costs them $25 to make each unit. They will produce 750,000 bottles a year and will be guaranteed to sell 300,000 in that year.
Wow, that's amazing.
Just because of their story. And the perfume is pretty good.
What's their story again?
They will say that I don't know how true it is, but their story is that they, for hundreds of years, they're producing perfumes for royalty. Right? They've kept that sort of image, and so now you aspire to want to buy Creed. You look at the $400 and you're like, I wish I could buy that perfume, right? And they're making that much in terms of profit. Now, a lot of the creative space, the fashion designers, etc., the perfumes and whatever, the amount of funding they need is very minimal. Very minimal. That 10 million that you'll be trying to secure for Skyrail or this telecommunications company, just give that industry $1 million. The turnover is insane, and so I think as someone in this space, it's very, very, very difficult to secure funding. How did I resolve that? I didn't get funding.
Did you bootstrap your way through?
Yes, I am still bootstrapping my way through. I've not paid myself since I started. So most
you wouldn't have these fancy things if you didn't pay yourself.
No, well, but that's the thing.
Part of the company expense.
We're making these things. So I'm essentially, if I'm wearing these things, I'm buying them at cost. Yeah. Not at retail.
And then, of course, you are the chief marketing officer.
Exactly.
Well. Yeah.
So I have to walk what I sell.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So most of my returns go straight back into the business.
Is it because investors rejected your pitch?
No. So a lot of them are just maybe. Do you know what? I'm not going to say every investor out there is not looking at my company. Maybe I've not found the investor that is interested in my company.
Are you actually pitching? Are you appearing before angel investors, venture capitalists?
Yeah.
Have you done that?
Yes. 2021 was the year of pitching. Yes, I have done that. And
would you summarize in less than a minute your typical elevator pitch?
Oh gosh, that would be difficult to do right now. But essentially what I've found with investors is that they tend to invest in the person if they find the person is investable. And so what happens is,
that's true, speaking for myself as an angel investor,
right? If they find the person as investable, I think what I find is that
I can't push you to do an elevator pitch.
That is pressure.
That
is pressure.
Too much pressure.
Okay, fine, I'll do an elevator pitch. Okay, so mood seasons. We conceptualize the idea of scent to reflect the idealistic person. Everyone wants to be their unique individual, and we create fragrances sourced naturally in order to elevate who you are at any given time. That is what we are, mood seasons, and that's the name. For an investment of $25,000, we're willing to give you 25% equity in order to be able to buy back all the way down to 10% in the next 5 years if we're able to achieve the targets set at hand. In summary, that would be it.
It's a powerful pitch. Where's my checkbook? No, just kidding. But having said that, that sounds like a powerful pitch. And of course, if you can back it up, I mean, the next thing the investor will say, where are your sales?
Yes.
Where's the traction? Where's the proof of concept? How do you cover all those?
I do.
Yeah.
And for me, it's, and the way in which I'm looking to expand the business, not your stereotypical have a store. Mood Seasons is about the experience. So a big...
You're not planning to open stores?
Not just a store, an experience center. So what I do is I go around and do exhibitions of... I show people how to create scents. I take them through the process that go into them. They enjoy the experience. I collaborate with certain vendors who produce, drinks or whatever, and these customers become loyal. My repeat customer base percentage rate is 90%, and that's something I'm very proud of. Once they buy, they always buy. So
something addictive about that smell. That fragrance.
Sorry?
There's something addictive about that.
And I think, if I was to tell you that I could make you a scent just for you, it's unique, bespoke, right? You'd be interested.
What will you need from me to
an
understanding of the type of person you are?
Exactly. And understand the type of person you are, the kind of things you like to do, what you wear. And essentially one of the easiest questions is, what do you buy at the moment? Right? You put all those together, you can create a scent profile to understand the person. Smell is just another reflection of who we are. But I would say scent is probably one of the least understood of all of our senses. Yeah.
This is very interesting.
And when you least understand something, there's room for arbitrage.
There's room for advertising.
Arbitrage.
Yes.
And that's what this is, right? So the more you understand something that the rest of your consumer base don't, that's where that comes from.
How did you come up with the? Do you have like a slogan or the catchphrase? Finance, fashion, and fragrance is enough as a catchphrase.
I'm working on one.
You're working.
I'm working on one. I've only recently discovered that that's who I am. I think every day we develop a newer understanding of who we are.
Of yourself, yeah.
Before this, I just saw myself as someone that's doing this, and I just happen to do this, and I just happen to do that. And sometimes when someone's like, "Well, but what do you do?" And I'd always struggle to decide which of them I'm going to mention at this point in time. But now, unapologetically, I'm just listen. This is everything about me. Is these three things, and
Tell me, because I didn't quite catch how you're going to expand without rolling out stores. If you're going to go continental and even international.
So a big plan is I would usually collaborate with spas. So so fragrances are not just perfumes. So fragrances are just a scented element of a product. So Mood Seasons does body lotions, body oils, shea oils, beard growth oils, and massage oils.
Beard what?
Beard growth. Yeah, beard growth oils.
It explains a lot about that.
Exactly. And
you groom your own beard.
Of course.
Yeah, using your own product.
Almost everything I wear and use is a Mood Seasons product.
Yeah, product. Okay.
Yeah. Except for shoes. I don't think I'm going to be able to touch shoes. But But so what was the...
I was curious how you're going to open stores without...
So I am going to open outlets, but not stores, not just stores.
What's the difference?
Okay, so
between an outlet and a store.
Okay, so an outlet is just a general term.
You're
right. But a store is... Okay, so a store would be, you have this place and everything is shelved, this is the price, buy this. No. My outlet is a secluded compound, right? It has a swimming pool. It's a house that's been converted into different outlets. You will see a place where you can just lounge, relax, and everything around you is Mood Seasons. Right? Everything around you
becomes an experience.
It's an experience. You can come there for scent making classes. You can come there. That's why I'm saying the collaboration with the spas, because most of the spas will use products that are made from Mood Seasons, right? And that gives you a lasting memory, an association or something. And for me, that's when you're looking at, for example, the luxury brand side of things, people pay for the experience.
I understand.
Right?
I understand.
Because I can't compete, and I'm not going to compete with price. Because if right now Dior decided...
Because you're focused on value.
I focus on value. Because right now, if Dior decided to sell everything for $10, I'm out of business. Right?
Yeah.
I can't afford to do that. Because my costs are not... The economies of scale in my side of things are not as... Right?
Yeah.
So, for me, the one thing I can do that's unique is to have a unique experience. And that's what people are paying for.
Yeah. Now, let's talk a little bit about the beard and the beard grooming part of it. Apart from focusing on your own needs, how did you say that men need special attention? A man's beard needs us. How did you come to that realization?
Well, you know what they say. What did they say? Find a problem and solve it. That was my problem. My beard was drying out. It would leave patches. It would lose the darken kind of the texture changes. So for me, I started off creating the beard oils to solve my problem, and I realized that it was a problem that every black man has. Yeah. Right. In fact, every man in general. I think,
So is there a number of products particularly having to do with men's? What are they?
So that's the beard oils. I am almost finished with the shampoos and conditioners. And also I think with the beard is more about the educating how to maintain. I think having the product is one thing, but most of these products that are moisturizing your beard or keeping them full, you have to.
So what would be involved in beard hygiene and beard care?
Okay.
In a nutshell.
Use shampoo and conditioner only once a week, ideally on the weekend. The beard oil, you use it 2 to 3 times a day.
Really?
Yes, a day.
How come? That sounds frequent. Right,
because the whole point, your beard grows and maintains this healthy look when it's moist. The minute it dries up is when you have these problems. You have the hair fallout, you have everything else. So the same way in which you're feeding yourself when you're hungry, your beard also requires food.
And same for your hair?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Your hair requires food. Every living part of your body.
But generally, the people who groom themselves are extremely, sorry to say this, women mostly.
Yeah.
And to some extent, our gay brethren.
And we say women look good. That's a result of constant grooming.
Yeah.
Right? And so if you want to look good, you have to also spend some attention and time on how you look.
Yeah.
I mean, we do that with clothing. With clothing. So how much more?
What about those of us who want to shave? You have aftershave,
Yes, aftershave as well is something that we're very heavy on. Aftershave, eau de parfums, eau de toilettes, body mists.
Okay.
Everything fragrance related is what we do.
Okay. Sounds like it's very exciting. Now, in terms of the money side and the finance side, we've been getting a lot of stories about how dangerous it is negative stories about things like crypto. What is your take there? And FX, what I've personally encountered is people, stealing my identity and selling FX, stealing people's money. So there's a lot of scams around that area. I wonder, now that I have an expert on the studio, what you might say about that.
If it feels like a scam, it is. That's the simple statement.
If it feels like a scam,
it is. Look, I'll give you an example. So someone says, they come in and say, okay, with crypto you can make this amount of money, this and this and that. If they came to me, I'll say, okay, great. Can you show me? Right? The first question, I remember the interview that Jay-Z had with someone, and he said, okay, well, let me see your bank account. Right? If it's that great and you're making these amounts of returns,
let me see
you have to show it. The same way if I was an entrepreneur trying to pitch for investment, you would want to see evidence.
I would see your bank statement.
Right? Yeah. It's the same.
I would want to see your balance sheet.
Yeah. Or even if so right now, if I'm saying I'm let's say I'm a credit trader as a broker, and I say, okay, if I come to you and say, okay, well, if I had an amount of cash of 500,000, 1 million, this is what I can do. I would show what I'm doing now.
But some scammers have the ability to do that.
Okay, that's true. And I think, to be honest, you can't 100% avoid, but you can narrow down. You can narrow it down.
Very few can.
Very few can be perfect scammers. You can narrow it down.
It depends what they're targeting. If they are targeting 50 million, they'll produce a bank statement of 2 million.
Right?
Yeah.
But it's not. But bank statement is just one of the things. If I was pitching for an investment, I said I can do this and do this and that, you would ask for multiple things.
Yes.
Right?
I would do due diligence on top.
That's it. And I would exactly. And I would expect people to do a due diligence. And if you ask my personal opinion about crypto, I don't believe in it.
The reason?
Because I think, for me, in order for me to invest in something, I have to be able to explain why the value has gone up or gone down. I think crypto is a promising thing, but they haven't quite fully understood how it reacts to certain structural things. Right now, crypto reacts to what people say. That's not really reliable investment, if you ask me.
But don't stocks do the same?
Well, stocks are companies who are producing financial reports. They are companies who are in industries, so you can analyze an industry and to see what an expectation is. So if a company says, I'm going to make this amount of revenue in a year, and it doesn't tie in with where the actual industry is going, unless they're doing something completely rapidly different, it's unlikely to be happening. There's something there, an underlying fundamental that you can assess.
And Bitcoin itself has suffered quite a bit, hasn't it?
For that reason. And if you look at the major moves of crypto, they've usually been off the back of what someone has said. One person.
Like a tweet from Elon Musk
exactly.
or something.
That's not really and that's why, for example, gold is like a safe haven. It doesn't move as much here or here. It's just sort of, it's like a floating bank account.
What about FX?
I've experienced FX on both sides. So I did dabble in forex trading before. And then I've been an FX trader on the institutional side of things. They're two completely different ball games. And I think also one of the problems with forex is how it's been marketed. So it's usually, I don't know how it is now, but back in the day, and they usually always find people that don't have money. That's usually the target audience.
Yeah.
So they'll come in and maybe have a conference at a hotel. It's always a hotel.
Yeah.
And they'll sit you down and say, okay, this is what we have been doing. We can create this system that if you press this button and if you buy this, but for today it's usually $5,000 to $10,000, but today special price only $1,500, and we'll teach you everything you need to know. Cool. And if you look at the they will show you some videos of a live trading thing they did, and you will see at a 2,005 to a 3,000 P&L going up and whatever. They'll show you what happened. But what they won't show you is the $20,000 they put in there, or the minus aspects of things. Because look, trading there's never a fully positive direction.
Can never be.
Right. And I think it takes a certain amount of money to buffer that movement that realistically most people that are targeted on the forex side of things don't have. In fact, I'll even take a step further. You will find that most people that actually have decent amounts of capital would not go into forex trading.
Because I'm yet to meet a billionaire who made the money from forex.
Yeah, but you meet quite a few billionaires that made their money from the institutional bonds trading.
Yeah,
you find a lot of people. I mean, even in Ghana, for example, up until this whole global financial situation, banks didn't really lend. Banks made their money from trading bonds.
In the old days.
As far as just last year.
Okay.
As far as just last year.
Yeah.
They were having annual yields of 22% to 30%. So why would you even risk lending to an individual?
Yeah.
When you can just go on the interbank market and get a yield of, so that's where people make their money, really. So again, I've given maybe a positive and negative of forex, but if you ask me about crypto, I don't touch it. No.
Not with the batch, Paul.
No. I don't touch. Not yet. Yeah. I don't think we are. And to be honest, I'm very sure all of these other as investments at a certain stage when they were first introduced were also not investment ready. Right.
So this is the time to be skeptical until there's a set.
This is the time to just wait and see. This is more of a let's wait until there's actual fundamentals that but support it. That's why they were trying to, the Chicago Mercantile Exchange was trying to list and regulate crypto, right?
They didn't want to be regulated.
Exactly. Why do you think that?
They say that they're avoiding what is known as fiat currency. They call it fiat currency, where governments just print money out of nowhere. They say that it creates inflation, and they're offering an alternative. That's what they say when they speak for themselves.
Who makes the cryptocurrency? Most of them being made in someone's bedroom. Right?
Yeah. Which is even worse than
exactly.
Than the reserve.
At least there are policies in place that attack people that are making counterfeit money. The real money that's being made is being announced. Right? There are interest rates and certain economic macro fundamentals that are supporting why certain things are happening. Crypto, I could wake up one day and make a crypto and call it Nanye.
Yeah.
The Nanye coin. And I think that's very dangerous at this moment in time, because when you create more, when you're able to readily create more of something, there's an over fluctuation of supply.
What about the non-fungible tokens, NFTs?
Oof. Okay, admittedly, I don't fully understand them.
Me neither.
So I won't sit here and...
Yeah, if an expert doesn't understand...
Yeah, I don't understand.
Then I shouldn't feel bad.
Yeah, no, I don't understand.
Yeah,
I'll be honest and say I don't understand.
Because it's quieting down quite a bit. Because you used to be able to get these monkeys.
Yes.
On these NFTs. Now, the talk has died down. Because people have lost money, I guess.
See?
All right. Now, this is the time of the show where you get to ask me a question. Say, do you have a question for me?
Yes. Okay. In another life, if I had to do it all over again, I'd be a pilot.
What?
This is my question too.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I'm not allowed to interrupt.
No. So, if you had the knowledge you have now, if you came back and you could do anything else, what would it be?
It's a very interesting question. A lot of the things that I'm doing, I'm happy with. Certainly, I'm happy with the real estate side. But I wonder how life would be if I had become an investor of the scale of somebody like Robert Smith, for instance, who does software, specialized type of software. And it's an area that investment banking fascinates me. So something in the area of investment banking, I would have wanted to go deeper and find out why people like George Soros do what they do. People like the Smith guy I mentioned, and there's a guy called Ray Dalio.
Yes.
I really wish, if time allowed. I'm very happy with what I'm doing. I'm happy with my life.
Yeah.
For the economy that I'm in, this is perfect. But if we're allowed to relive and start things again, I would read all that I can learn when I'm in my teens about this industry and become an expert. And somehow I think that it would turn me on somehow.
Wait, so if you could do everything again, you would still pretty much do what you're doing now, but in another field?
Yeah.
Nothing different at all?
No regrets.
No?
There are no regrets. I'm happy with the life I've lived. If there's anything that sometimes I regret about is that I started my personal development effort a little late.
Okay.
I would have wanted to start it in primary school, where I'm reading personal development books. But I started reading those when I was working. And if I had been deliberate and intentional about personal development early, like in my teens, for instance, I think I would be 100 times what I am now. But that's not a regret. It's just to say, you
could have added.
Yeah, and here's an opportunity to tell someone that start now.
Yes.
Don't wait for tomorrow. Okay. Look at that camera, sir, and leave the viewer there with an inspiring and motivational message.
Okay. If I have to come up with one on the spot, I'll tell you what I tell myself every day. You are what you put out, and so your number one investment is yourself, and that could be in any aspect, whether it comes from reading, just opening your mind and watching and learning and understanding what other people do, and then developing yourself to put out exactly what you want to be seen as, and that'll be my motivation.
This is beautiful. Thank you very much. Share with them all your contacts, even your physical addresses, everything, where they can reach you.
Well, you can find me on Instagram, Mr_Mood Seasons. That's my personal Instagram. My Mood Seasons _fragrances would be for the perfumes. You'll see all sorts of colorful representations of what I do. If you ever want to come to Ghana, I'm very happy to show people around. I love to be able to get people to see what's out there beyond what they're used to. And yeah, so those two are probably the easiest ways to find me at the moment.
There's no email or?
Yes, email. You can contact me at Nanye Kofi, nanye.kofi@moodseasons.com. And yeah.
And I guess the WhatsApp is too personal, right?
Yeah, there's too many. I'm even trying to cut down on people contacting me on WhatsApp now.
Yeah. We understand. It's understandable. All right. Thank you very much. You've done a brilliant job.
Thank you for having me.
It was a great interview.
Thank you.
Cheers.